Proceedings are now resumed. Please be seated. Members of the committee, just to keep you all abreast, what we're planning to do now is to finish off the Minister of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing, and we will also start the Minister of Financial Services after we have finished this. The next four appropriations all relate to the National Housing Trust. So I propose if we just deal with them as one, if we could. Members, you're happy with that?
Mr. Chairman, may I just ask, I thought you had announced that we were finishing the current ministry, and then that would be it for the night.
I don't think I indicated that, sir.
You didn't?
I said we had to finish this tonight, this ministry.
Because I can prolong this one too, you know. No, you can put the vote. You can do that. The vote be put. You know.
I would hope you wouldn't do that, sir. Just not deliberately. I'm going to just read them out and ask for questions on these four. You still have your opportunity. So NHT 4, Administration of the Affordable Housing Initiative, $145,525 in 2018, $145,525 in 2019. NHT 5, Administration of the Government Guaranteed Home Assisted Mortgage, $231,035 in 2018 and $231,035 in 2019. NHT 6, Administration of the New Affordable Housing Initiative, $187,368 in 2018 and $187,368 in 2019. And NHT 7, Administration of the Build on Your Own Property Initiative, $16,667 in 2018 and $16,667 in 2019. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Member from East End. Member from Georgetown Central.
My simple question is that this lump sum with all four of them looks rather small in respect to the plans to help persons with affordable housing. Can I get some indication of what's the estimated amount of homes we plan to have built in this year, 2018, and possibly if we have the answer for 2019 as well, because the amounts looks rather small.
Mr. Chair, through you, I'll allow the Director of Housing to answer these questions.
Julio Ramos, National Housing General Manager. Mr. Chair, through you, right now we're planning on developing the Bordentown housing site with additional 16 more houses. To date, I'm happy to report that we've got the plans on them, and it's just a matter of hitting ground with those.
Any particular houses in Georgetown? Any more homes in Georgetown to be added to the fleet that we have already?
Mr. Chair, through you, that would be considered in the next phase.
When would that be? To you, Mr.
Can I
Chair.
actually direct your question through the chair, please?
To you, Mr. Chair, any indication of when the next phase will start for Georgetown affordable homes?
Mr. Chair, there have been ongoing, through you, there have been ongoing communications and caucus. Firstly, there's an identified piece of property known to everyone in Georgetown, and needs to be decided as to where next to build additional homes in Georgetown. But the initiative of my initiative, the housing for the housing trust is to for the next move after Bordentown is to go to Georgetown.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for my edification, the GG Ham program normally helps people by guaranteeing a certain initial amount of the loan, and then they have to get their own loan through the bank. So maybe my understanding of the amount may be misinterpreted, and this amount that is allocated can actually carry a lot farther than, because the person technically has to get their own financing. Are these amounts for the initial bill, and then afterwards, after they've gotten the loan, the money's paid back to government? How does it work?
Mr. Chair, through you, the government guaranteed assisted mortgage program is a program that is initiated between the Cayman Islands government and the participating banks. What you're seeing there in our outputs for GGHAM is administrative service for this program. What it involves is obviously assessing individuals and having them qualify for the government guarantee, whereby government guarantees up to 35%.
Okay.
So to your question, the appropriations that you're seeing there is for the administration of that program.
Thank you. Last question through you, Mr. Chair. The administration of Build on Your Own Property initiative, is that $16,000 for 18 and 19 also administrative cost?
Mr. Chair, through you, that is correct. That's administrative cost.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A year ago, the National Housing Development Trust was plagued with a number of issues. There were families said to be living in condemned homes, many of those families having children who applied for the National Housing Trust. They were met by a significant backlog, some 200 applicants also seeking to be moved into these affordable homes. There were a number of difficulties and delays, partially because banks were unwilling to provide financing, but a large bulk of the delays were said to be related to the red tape or bureaucracy that resulted in many applicants who originally applied fundamentally giving up in the process. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I wonder if the director can state if these problems still exist, and or has the situation been improved?
Mr. Chair, through you, I can understand your concerns. Previously, we had a backlog of applications, and as you're aware, the trust at one point in time moved away from home ownership and went into the rental, and then having to move from the rental and back to home ownership. In order to give everyone the attention deserves, we assessed all applicants. We reached out to everyone so that no one can be overlooked. We have been through all of the applications. We have streamlined the process, and the board in itself went the route of home ownership, meaning that you would have to qualify at the bank in order to get one of these affordable houses. So to your question, we've streamlined the process. The applications that we have are now current, and we also encourage individuals that if they have an interest in applying, feel free to come by and we'll assess them and let them know what their position is.
Thank you for that. If I could may do a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, through you. A year ago, again, the delays in red tape and bureaucracy were attributed to the onerous application process of the National Housing Development Trust. Moments ago, the director stated that they have replaced that with bank requirements, which we know are also rather significant and exhaustive. But a year ago, the National Housing Development Trust, the requirements were, I think it was, you had to earn $30,000 or less for a single applicant, $45,000 or less if you were a joint applicant. You had to be employed for 6 months. You had to prove you were Caymanian, as we discovered in these discussions. That itself can be quite difficult, along with providing a raft of documentation, birth certificate, police clearance, employment letter, credit references, etc., etc. Can the director state through you, Mr. Chairman, if this is still the case, or has this criteria for application been streamlined as well?
Mr. Chair, through you, most, if not all of the requirements that you just outlined, with the exception of the Caymanian, obviously we have to cater to our Caymanians. That's one. The other requirements, you would appreciate that these are somewhat piggybacking of the same process for a bank. And the reason we tend to pre-assess these individuals is to refer them to the banks so as to package them, refer them to the bank, and give them the financing required. So even in the event that we do not ask for these things, the bank would still have to ask them for these things. So it is a requirement per se, because you need to convince the bank to give you the lending.
Finally, Mr. Chairman, the whole point of the affordable housing is found in its name, that they be affordable. Through you, Mr. Chairman, can the director state what are the costs of these affordable homes, which I understand are being built in both a 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom configuration?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, between 2010 and 2013, we built 94 houses. There were 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bedroom. The 1 bedroom we discontinued. The 2 bedrooms were built for up to 94,000. The 3 bedrooms, and this is just the construction of it, and the 3 bedrooms were built for 112. Being sold, the 3 bedroom has been sold for 120,000, and the 2 bedroom is being sold at 105. The reason why they're being sold cheap is because the cost to build it, plus the overhead costs, and we do not charge them for the land portion that has been vested to us by government.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Affordable, sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one more question from me, at least. Has the department considered different approaches to offering homes and shelter for persons who need a home? They could potentially make buying the home cheaper. Say, for instance, in the UK, they do apartment complexes. Each unit is owned by the individuals, but my thinking is if you have a plot of land and you have an apartment complex that has, say, 20 units on it, you can probably get each one of those units a 2-bedroom in it for a lot cheaper than 105 or 120, which is reasonably cheap already in the Cayman Islands. But considering the fact that there are different levels of persons' affordability, a person may be attracted to having something that could be more in the range of a 75,000. At least they'll still have a roof over their head. So my question is, has your department considered cheaper approaches, even because obviously when they're singular and they're on their own, standing on their own, that creates a cost in itself. But if you bulk them, you could possibly get them cheaper. Has that ever been a consideration?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the last board in itself, they were faced with the task of having to sell these houses that were in stock. And they were up to the planning stage of having to look at different alternatives to assist the different categories of income. That is something that would need to be considered from this time on. I've just been recently been appointed a new board.
All those in favor of... go ahead.
Quick one, Mr. Chairman. Are all the Bordentown homes now leased out?
Mr. Chairman, through you, they're sold. Yes, that is correct.
Sorry,
They've
sold.
been sold.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor of NHT4, Administration of the Affordable Housing Initiative?
Mr. Chair, colleague Ms. Conley had a question.
Okay. Member for West Bay, Georgetown South.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. How often do the department carry out site visits, namely to Windsor Park, the affordable homes in Windsor Park?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the site visits are conducted by our maintenance officers who have to do their routine maintenance of the common areas and specific to houses that we are renting. So apart from that, there are also follow-on jobs from the property management and supervisor who has to confirm that works are being done in those areas.
Thank you. One more question through you, Mr. Chairman. How often do you all send out statements?
Mr. Chairman, through you, we have a standing policy where we send off our statements on a quarterly basis, but we also send them out on a monthly basis for the delinquent individuals as well.
Thank you.
All those in favor of NHT4, Administration of the Affordable Housing Initiative, $145,525 in 2018 and $145,525 in 2019. NHT5, Administration of the Government Guaranteed Home Assisted Mortgage, $231,035 in 2018 and $231,035 in 2019. NHT6, Administration of the New Affordable Housing Initiative, $187,368 in 2018 and $187,368 in 2019. NHT7, Administration of the Build on Your Own Property Initiative, $16,667 in 2018 and $16,667 in 2019. All standing part of the schedule to the bill. Please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. TAB 6. Cultural programs, $8,550 in 2018 and $8,550 in 2019. Are there any questions?
Aye.
All those in favor of TAB 6, cultural programs, $8,550 in 2018 and $8,550 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. NGS 4, HIV, AIDS, and First Aid Public Education Programs, $22,325 in 2018 and $22,325 in 2019. There are no questions. All those in favor of NGS 4, HIV, AIDS, and First Aid Public Education Programs of $22,325 in 2018 and $22,325 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. NGS 53, Palliative Care Nursing, $80,158 in 2018 and $80,158 in 2019. Are there any questions? All those in favor of NGS 53, Palliative Care Nursing, for $80,158 in 2018 and $80,158 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
All those saying no. Those against, no. The ayes have it. NGS 54, Social Marketing for Prevention of HIV/AIDS, $50,000 in 2018, $50,000 in 2019. Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Member Freestad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Seeing that we discussed the prevalence of AIDS in Cayman earlier, and for years we have been talking about the PSAs on this matter. I can't recall seeing too many PSAs. The occasional time I'll see it, but is that program, can someone explain that program as to whether or not, how often, how frequent those PSAs are?
Mr. Chair, through you, the HIV and AIDS prevention education is across 3 different entities, one being the Health Services Authority. The Red Cross plays a role as well, and this output, NGS 54, is for the Cayman AIDS Foundation. I would have to get back to the member regarding the number of PSAs that each of those entities has done.
Mr. Chair,
Member for Georgetown Central.
only one question. Is it prohibited to hand out condoms in the Cayman Islands schools? Mr. Chair, there seems to be a misunderstanding of why I asked the question, or a confusion why I asked the question. Obviously, this is a part of education and prevention as well, which is a part of the social marketing prevention of HIV and AIDS. But I seem to recall this topic being a taboo from a while back in respect to it, and many people being fearful or not comfortable with the fact of young people at a age of sexuality or tempted by sexuality, not being given or exposed to the freedom of having protection by way of condoms. It's not one I necessarily agree with, so I just want to confirm whether or not we do allow that in the schools, because other jurisdictions do it, and if it's not allowed, what's the reasoning behind it?
Can you just answer?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to re-emphasize that I would assume that he's asking about secondary school and not primary school or preschool. So once that assumption is put one side, let me continue. Certainly, it's a situation that I questioned the Finance Committee, some Finance Committees ago, when there was a $10,000 for it. It's certainly not being promoted or pushed by this minister. And the reason being that most children are 16 and under, and it's a criminal offense to have sex without consent. Obviously, if it's the position of the ministry of that of the government that they're going to be supplied, I, as minister, would not be preventing it, but if I had an option, it wouldn't be in my schools.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Do you want to have anything to add, Chief?
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, the condom distribution that is contained in this output, NGS 54 for the Cayman AIDS Foundation, as far as I'm aware, it's condom distribution that they undertake in some bars. They go and restock baskets where there's free condoms. They'll also be at public events where they'll be distributing condoms as well. I'm not aware that it's in the schools.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just for clarity, I was referring to tertiary schools, not secondary schools, not primary schools.
All those in favor? NGS 54, Social Marketing for Prevention of HIV/AIDS, $50,000 in 2018 and $50,000 in 2019. Please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. NGS 55, tertiary care at local and overseas institutions, $10,981,000 in 2018 and $9,920,000 in 2019. Any questions? Member for East End.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the advent of Shetty Health City doesn't seem to lessen the cost of tertiary care overseas. Am I correct in that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have the expenditure on the NGS 55 represents the expenditure on non-HSA care for indigent seafarers and veterans, and it continues to be rather significant expenditure year on year. The nature of this expenditure, it's difficult to predict. As we talked about with HEA2 for the healthcare for the indigents at the HSA, the indigent population does fluctuate. I would need to check with Cineco in terms of whether they've seen cost savings with some of the services, the specific services over the years that we used to send patients overseas for that are now treated locally. But in terms of the overall expenditure, it has continued to be at a similar level.
Mr. Chair, if I can make one subtle observation based on the comment made just now, the predictions for 2016-2017 was 17,100,000, and if we did that annually, it would be little. Was that 15? Okay. So basically, what I'm saying is that the amount allocated for this year, coming 2018, is less than what it would have been for annually in 2016. So that would suggest that the prices are getting cheaper because the numbers of patients stayed the same. So obviously the price is going down in some capacity. That's my only conclusion based on the numbers and the figures and the amounts of patients have been.
What's the question, sir?
No, I was making an observation based on,
okay.
on the matter.
Okay.
It's on page 250.
Yes. All those in favor of NGS?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Are we still using the medical, I think you call them robots, at the hospital? You understand what I'm saying?
Mr. Chair, through you, I think the member is referring to the Sally robot that was donated by the Seafarers Association a few years back, and it is at the Health Services Authority. My understanding is that they have utilized it. It is especially for treating strokes, and the doctors on the other side of it are specialists in stroke treatment. One of the challenges that they've had, and I think we've discussed in this forum in the past, has been the issue of the telemedicine codes and charges. The amendments to introduce those telemedicine codes are currently pending consideration by Cabinet.
Mr. Chairman, this is an area I wanted to go in earlier, but I waited particularly for this because of the nature of this. Mr. Chairman, I would like to know if it still requires the sign-off of the Chief Medical Officer for these tertiary expenditures.
Mr. Chair, through you, the procedure that Cineco has in place for referrals outside of the Health Services Authority is that the Chief Medical Officer would review and authorize them.
Who is the Chief Medical Officer now?
Mr. Chair, through you, currently Dr. Samuel Williams is the acting Chief Medical Officer.
Dr. who?
Dr. Samuel Williams Rodriguez.
That until when? Until the post is filled. So how come that post hasn't been filled for so long?
Through you,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, we are currently advertising for that role. We have advertised it twice previously, and we've had to review the salary scale, the job description, with subsequent times that we've advertised it. The job is currently out for recruitment, and the recruitment, I think, closes next week.
But how long has it been opened? Since Dr. Smith?
Kumar?
Left?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can speak to the situation since my tenure at the ministry. Historically, before the Health Services Authority became an authority, the medical director of the hospital was also the chief medical officer. Subsequent to the creation of the authority, there was a situation that the chief medical officer was the medical director at the HSA, and then they split the roles. From 2009, Dr. Smith was the acting chief medical officer. It has continued to be add-on duties to somebody's substantive role at the ministry. So what we're hoping to achieve with the recruitment now is to fill the role at the ministry level and have a full-time chief medical officer.
Mr. Chairman, I'll yield to the minister, but...
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, member from East End. Through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add, before you continue, that when I got there, we discussed the situation when I arrived as minister. And it appears that very few Caymanians were interested in the post, the ones that were qualified because of the salary scale. I took it to caucus and was instructed that we need to do whatever we had to do to ensure that Caymanian took this post. This was some months now, and they've been trying to attract and trying to rework the rework the Yes, so Mr. Chair, we recognize there are possibly some Caymanians on the island that could qualify, and in investigating, we found that the post wasn't attractive to the Caymanians because of the salary scale, and we undertook to do whatever we had to ensure that it became attractive so that Caymanians could apply for this post. And hence the reason why the post is not filled, because my intention is to have a Caymanian fill this post. And the ministry has been working very hard to try to get this post filled.
Mr. Chairman, I hear the minister, but we have a history of bringing in overseas people to fill the position of chief medical officer, and we either got to run them out or something happens to get rid of them. My good friend from Bodden Town, he had nothing but headaches with it, and ministers before him and ministers since him. Now, I was just told, yes, it is a ministry appointed position. I hope it isn't that person is going to stay at the ministry. Is that the case? Because then that brings me into the next question, because we have had this at the government place all these years. It worked well. And I know there are Caymanians who are capable of doing this. I have heard other doctors in the private sector put one particular doctor up on a high pedestal who has been there acting for 3 years. Now, I'm business with personalities inside here, nor outside there. But if we have such capable Caymanians to act, then those Caymanians must be put permanently in these positions. Mr. Chairman, we have enough rumors on the street about our health care as it is. And if we find one Caymanian, when the man from Northside, Smith was there, wonderful person, held in high regard, then all of a sudden things went awry because he resigned. Then we put the lady, Dr. McLaughlin there, and just keep leading her on and renewing. This is the information I got. And she got fed up with it. Was that intentional? I don't know. We need to stop this. I know what. I hope we don't bring in far enough of this. I hope to the Almighty that I look to every day, that don't happen when you got Caymanians who have filled the spots before.
Mr. Chair, I just want to, as a point of clarification, that Dr. Smith actually retired. But I concur with the sentiments of the member from East End in terms of if we have qualified Caymanians, that post should be filled.
Mr. Chairman.
And that's my full intent.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the minister said a while ago that the caucus had agreed for more funding for the post. So where do we stand with that then? If that is so, that would be in the budget, wouldn't it? He said so.
Mr. Chair, through you, to confirm to the member that the request for the ministry, the first appropriation that we dealt with this afternoon or this morning, does include the Chief Medical Officer post. And what we have done with the ad that has been out is that we have the base salary, which is the same one, but we've offered a call-out allowance to reflect the fact that the duties often occur outside of regular working hours. We've benchmarked that against the salary scale for a physician, as we understand it, with the relevant number of years of experience, which is a minimum of 10 years, and what we think would make it more attractive for the applicant. And it is in our budget.
Follow up. And I need to understand this, if the caucus has agreed on more funding a particular item and they put it in the budget, then that means that that's a policy of the government. Maybe Ms. Ahern can say why, because I never understood that aspect of it. What or why can't that be rolled into a salary?
Mr. Chair, through you, in our discussions with the portfolio of the civil service after the last recruitment attempt where we weren't successful, the discussions that we had with them were around whether there had been any substantial changes to the job description and the duties and responsibilities, which would be a reason for them to change the scale of the role. And because we weren't proposing to change it any more, the recommendation that they made was to utilize this call-out allowance as part of because it does reflect, as I said, that there are some duties outside. There's often duties outside of regular hours or regular working hours. So this was the solution that was proposed by the portfolio of the civil service based on the system that they use for job evaluation.
Mr. Chairman, now I know.
Could ask if you could give way to the member from Cayman Brac. Minister.
Thank you, Member from Easton. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I was just wondering whether any consideration had been given to the fact that the pay that was currently at hand, it was felt by caucus to be wholly insufficient to attract the caliber of Caymanians that it needed to attract. Hence the reason of the directive from caucus.
Mr. Chair, through you, the concerns around the salary were expressed in our discussions with the portfolio of the civil service, and the advice that we got back from them was to proceed with this the call-out allowance to reflect the difference between what we presented as the market rate, what we understood to be the market rate for somebody with these qualifications versus where this post had been graded on the government salary scales.
And Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up, perhaps some elucidation can be given as why it was necessary to ask for 10 years experience. Is that like a world standard, or because that question has been circulating as to why?
Mr. Chair, through you, we did a review of the job description a few years ago, and also sought advice and guidance from my counterparts in Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, and Tahoe. And the benchmark seems to be for chief medical officers a minimum of 10 years experience, postgraduate experience, and a master's degree in public health or master's degree in epidemiology. Those are the master's in public health and the 10 years experience are the job requirements that we've included in the job description here.
Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up.
I'll give it to Mr. Speaker. I just have one more follow-up.
I just want to find out if there is not room for equivalence to those things that you are naming from PAHO, or don't we have a system that if you have the requisite experience in the job, don't, as much as I get cussed for it, I really don't know the civil service, all the civil service rules. But is there not some, as I said, equivalent to that?
Mr. Chair,
For
through
experience,
you,
as I said.
when we were reviewing the job description, we met with the medical director of the hospital, the acting CMO at the time, the medical officer of health at the time, someone else who had acted at CMO. We got a lot of input from some of our local practitioners as well. And as we discussed earlier when we were talking about the public health law and the role of public health, one of the component of public health and the role of the chief medical officer is a fairly significant one. And it does seem to be that postgraduate qualification in public health is really what is expected in that type of role.
Mr. Chairman.
I was just wondering, maybe it was said, and I missed it, Mr. Chair, who actually pays for this post, HSA or the ministry? The ministry? By the person who works at the hospital? Is that intended to change? Thanks.
Mr. Chair, through you, the funding and this post, the CMO post, is envisioned as a post at the ministry. The person would be at the ministry to work. The situation we have now is because it's an acting situation and extra duties in addition to the substantive role, they have been practitioners working at the HSA as their substantive role with the additional duties of the CMO. So we haven't had a CMO sitting at the ministry. What we're hoping the outcome of this recruitment will be is that we do have that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, obviously, and I want everybody to know, I don't hold no brief for anybody. I want everyone to know that. Obviously, the wage that it was currently, the wage that was there currently, was a deterrent for the Caymanians staying there. I'm hearing that this government, and I don't care how it came about caucus or cabinet, is saying to increase that to attract the Caymanians. No, obviously the civil service department, ministry has instructed to keep it at that and give incentives like call-outs and the likes. That's a deliberate setup. Put some foreigner in there. I don't hold no brief for no one. I really don't care. The only brief I hold is that Caymanians are capable of doing it, and we are setting them up not to get it. And that needs to stop now.
Mr. Chair, just want to, for clarity, what I'm hearing from the members is that the entire House is uncomfortable with the arrangement and salary for the potentially new CMO, and would possibly like a directive to come from cabinet. Well, in any case, that the members of this House in its entirety is uncomfortable with the current salary and the stipend. So we need to discuss this with the government.
Okay. All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman,
Angie?
one quick follow-up. Will the Caymanians who were previously considered for that role now be invited to apply and be interviewed? Because if they became frustrated with the salary, and that was the main factor in them not wanting the role, in my view, I believe they're not going to be interested, and someone is going to have to now reach out to them to, once this salary situation is corrected, because I would hate to think now that someone who's acted in the role for 3 years or whatever is now going to be bypassed because they may have lost interest, and you can't blame them. The other question I have is, this situation has been known for about 8 years now that we've had someone acting. Why has it taken 8 years for us to get to this point where we realize now that the salary isn't suitable for the position? Why is it taking so long?
Mr. Chair, through you, I just want to clarify that the ad that has gone out for the post reflects in the ad the salary and the call-out allowance. It's not a hidden allowance. It's out as part of the ad. It's very clear that this is being offered. It's an open recruitment. Anybody who wishes to apply is welcome to do so. The issue around the salary and the situation with the difficulty to recruit has existed for the last 8 or 9 years that I've been involved at the ministry. The first time that we went out for recruitment to substantively fill the role, and having a full-time CMO at the ministry is a new situation. It's not one that we've had before. When we went out previously to advertise it with a lower salary grade. We went back to the portfolio of the civil service after the first time and said, look, we weren't able to attract, we think, and we did express when it was graded the first time, and it was graded at a lower grade than it is now. We went back and said that we were concerned given what we were trying to attract, which was a qualified physician, an experienced physician. With the salary scale, when we advertised it, we then went back to the portfolio of the civil service and we reviewed the job description. They were able to regrade it, which is how it ended up on the scale that it's on now, and we advertised it again. We are, as I said, after the last round of advertising, we went back again and said we would really like to be able to bring this on par with what we understand the market rate is for a physician of this qualification and experience. And the solution that they have proposed, which we have now gone out with, is to advertise it with the base salary and the call-out allowance and the usual package of benefits that go with that as a civil servant.
Mr. Chairman, the call-out allowance being advertised separately from the salary, isn't it possible that some later administration could change the policy in relation to call-out allowances? And in that case, that could be wiped out by a policy decision?
Mr. Chair, through you, the salary and the call-out allowance would be part of a contractual agreement with a successful candidate and would be honored for that period of that contract. It would be part of their remuneration package.
I'd like to go ahead and put the matter to a vote if I could. NGS,
Mr.
if
Chair,
all those in favor?
Could I just beg indulgence for one
Okay.
last question that I should have asked earlier? If this CMO was paid at a current market rate, which caucus and the elected members felt that was the proper rate, would that then make that person the highest paid person in the ministry, save and except the minister?
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, I believe that would be the situation.
All those in favor of NGS 55, tertiary care at local and overseas institutions, $10,981,000 in 2018 and $9,920,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. NGS 74, preservation of natural environment and places of historic significance, $570,000 in 2018, $570,000 in 2019. Any questions? All those in favor of NGS 54, preservation of natural environment and places of historic significance, for $570,000 in 2018 and $570,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. NGS 83, other health and cultural programs, for $30,000 in 2018, $30,000 in 2019. Any questions? All those in favor of NGS 83, other health and cultural programs, for $30,000 in 2018, $30,000 in 2019, standing part to the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Turning next to transfer payments, TP 44, temporary poor relief payments for young parents program, the YPP program students, $30,000 in 2018 and $30,000 in 2019. Are there any questions? There are no questions. All in favor? All those in favor of TP 44, temporary poor relief payments for young parents program students, $30,000 in 2018, $30,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. TP 73, other health and cultural program assistance, $221,000 in 2018, $220,000 in 2019. Are there any questions? All those in favor of TP 73, other health and cultural programs assistance, $221,000 in 2018, $220,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. OE 15, Pan American Health Organization subscription, $15,000 in 2018, $15,000 in 2019. Any questions? All those in favor of OE 15, Pan American Health Organization subscription for $15,000 in 2018, $15,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. OE 66.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the balance of the vote be taken in block.
I'm happy to take that forward, sir.
No, Mr. Chairman, there are some of those that needs to be, we would like to question.
Can you give me an indication, sir?
The National Housing Development Trust
Okay.
and the equity and
I was moving on 15, 16, and 103.
Okay, I'm happy to, let's
yeah,
do
yeah,
that. OE, all those in favor of OE 66, United Nations Caribbean Environmental Program for $7,000 in 2018, $7,000 2019, and OE 103, Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARFA, $18,500 in 2018, $18,500 in 2019, all standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. EI 53, Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing, $10,900,000 in 2018 and $16,705,000 in 2019.
Aye.
Any questions?
no, Mr. Chairman, I would like to know what that equity investment is.
Equity. It's equity.
Oh, I know it's equity. I want to know how the equity is broken down.
Mr. Chair, through you, the equity injection EI 53 is made up of the following. In 2018, $1.3 million for the integrated solid waste management system, followed by $655,000 in 2019. Also in 2018 for the landfill remediation, $4.6 million, and in 2019, $8,050,000. And the mental health facility is $5 million in 2018 and $8 million in 2019.
Who's doing the mediation on that landfill?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the landfill remediation is part of the contract for the integrated solid waste management system.
Who is doing it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the details about the remediation and the party that would actually be doing the remediation is something that is currently being negotiated as part of the contract with the reserve bidder.
Mr. Chairman, what I would like
Sorry,
to know
with
is
the preferred bidder, Mr. Chair. My apologies.
which law firm is representing government?
Mr. Chair, through you, the government is being advised by Maples and Burge Salmon, which is a firm out of the UK, as well as the government legal department.
Bird Solomon, you said?
A UK-based firm.
Pardon me?
The UK-based firm.
Burge
And
Salmon.
what's the name of it?
Yeah. BURGES, and then Salmon, SALMON, I believe is how it's spelled.
And Maples.
And Maples, that's correct.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Go
One
ahead.
question. I think there was a question I tried to ask earlier that was on a wrong line item in respect to the iguanas. And I'm hoping I didn't miss the opportunities. Yeah.
Are there any other questions then in relation to specific questions relating to these equity investments? If not, I'll put the vote. All those in favor of EI 53, Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing, $10,900,000 in 2018 and $16,705,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. EI 57, National Housing Development Trust, $2,888,640 in 2018, and $9,267,686 in 2019. Questions?
Aye.
Member for East End.
Mr. Chairman, can we get an explanation as to, I think it's something to do with some debt or something?
Mr. Chair, I'll allow the managing director to answer that question.
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, General Manager. Yes, the bulk of it is actually has to do with the bond commitments that were used to construct the affordable houses in 2004 and the new batches in 2010.
What percentage of that is being repaid by virtue of rent on those homes? Because, and Mr. Chairman, we had to give homes for those in Windsor Park because, right? Yeah, because, which was one of those bonds. What was 27 million, something like that. We had to, when we rebuilt them, there was a decision we had to give the house because we had to make good on the homes, on the ownership. How many of those are left that, other than the ones we now have to pay off for? How many in that cluster, in that group of homes that we had to make good on, that we are not being paid for?
Mr. Chairman, through you, if I'm understanding you correctly, you would like to know how many houses were grandfathered into the new program because to make good on their end with the initial commitment.
The initial commitment we made turned bad because the houses were bad, and some houses were still up for rent, not ownership. It wasn't owned by the proprietor. So when the new homes were built, everything was demolished and we built new homes. We legally had to make good and give those homes to some of those people. It must have been like 50% or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the percentage. That's what I'm looking for.
Mr. Chairman, through you, yes, to your concern on Windsor Park, and I'll speak on West Bay as well. All right, in total, there were 107 houses built under the old houses.
Right.
When the new houses were rebuilt, in the case of Windsor Park, the site was demolished and completely rebuilt. Of that, approximately 15 or 16 of those individuals, homeowners, were transitioned under their initial arrangement. To date, 6 of them have gone out to the bank and bought their house up front, and there's still 10 remaining with the lease to own arrangement as to what was initially put in place. In West Bay, similar situation, but they were not all transferred. The good standing individuals got that opportunity. That's why we have 2 sites, an old and a new site. In the old site, there's only 19 houses. We have one as a shed. And up there, it's approximately 12 individuals as well. The remaining have been rented / sold as well.
So we lost on some 20-odd homes? How much are they? We lost on like 20-odd out of the homes that we have to pay this bond back, right?
That is correct, Mr.
That ain't bad. What's that, quarter? 25%, 30%? We lost 30%?
Mr. Chairman, through you, just approximately that, yes.
Okay.
I put the matter to the vote. All in favor of EI 57, National Housing Development Trust, for $2,888,640 in 2018 and $9,267,686 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. EA 30, Cemetery Vaults, Grand Cayman, $200,000 in 2018, $350,000 in 2019. Any questions? I put the question. All those in favor of EA 30, Cemetery Vaults, Grand Cayman, for $200,000 in 2018, $350,000 in 2019, standing part of the schedule to the bill, well, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. The ayes have it. Members, that concludes the appropriations to the Minister of Health, Environment, Culture, and Housing. It's been a marathon session.
Just want to say, I want to thank the chief officer and all the staff and staff from housing and the National Gallery and the museum and all of the ministry staff, CFO and her team. I want to say thank you for the great work that they're doing for the Cayman Islands and for the government. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for making it easy on us. Thank the House for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And the opposition.
We are now going to take a very short break. I'm going to ask members, please stick around while the team from the Ministry of Health leave and the Minister for Financial Services brings her team in.
Mr. Chairman, let's get it straight now. How long are you working tonight?
So I plan to work till about 11 o'clock.
Well, you got to work by yourself.
Please don't do that.